All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on using OpenText SnapMatch for intelligent capture. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, RDS has decades of experience working with intelligent capture. We have a team of OpenText intelligent capture experts on staff that know the product inside and out to provide maintenance, support, upgrades, and custom development to our clients around the globe. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. We'll be sending out the recording to everyone when the session is over, so you can focus on paying attention during the session and not worry about taking notes. So you'll get an email, all the participants will get an email following up on the session. If you have any questions during the session, you can enter those in the Q&A area at the top of your webinar bar, and we'll be saving some time at the end to get those questions answered for you. So again, we're glad that you could join us for the session today, and we'll go ahead and get started. Our presenters for the session today are Jim Lindsay, a solutions consultant and business analyst, and One Win, an application support engineer. My name is Mandy Daniel, and I'm the product manager, and I'm hosting today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim and One to get us started.
Thank you, Mandy. All right, so welcome everybody. And what are we going to do today? Well, today we're going to show you a powerful feature in intelligent capture called SnapMatch. And my colleague Juan will give us a look at the admin perspective on how to configure SnapMatch. And this entails the information extraction engine, IEE. And then we'll look at it from the user experience. So once we've configured it, we'll see what SnapMatch looks like, say, from an AP clerk working some documents. And then we'll finish up with some Q&A. All right. So SnapMatch. What is SnapMatch? Well, it's a method for populating your index fields and runs as a field population rule engine during extraction. So SnapMatch can use data from a SQL Server database or a text file for matching against your documents. So think auto-populating a vendor address as you ingest an invoice, or let's say the vendor name is a logo with unconventional font, or say the invoice image isn't very clear. SnapMatch can match against different data attributes, for example, say the address, and then populate the rest of the vendor information related to that document. And you can even populate data in your index fields that were not on the document. So let's say you want to index a vendor number. SnapMatch can look up that vendor number on the table and then populate that data, even if it's not on the invoice. And taking this a step further, there's a feature called Enable Alternatives. And this setting, let's say you have a vendor with, well, multiple addresses. Enable Alternatives would provide the user with the next best matches, say. So this means a user could simply select the correct address or correct data from an address table or a drop-down list, if you will. And we'll get a visual of that in the demo coming up. And then finally, SnapMatch can be configured in either IEE, the information extraction engine, or in advanced recognition. All right, so I've been mentioning IEE. So what is IEE? Well, the information extraction engine in intelligent capture uses machine learning rather than templates to know where and what data to extract from your document. So this means you don't have to set up those time-consuming templates because IEE is not using XY coordinates to find your data. It is using what's called incremental model learning. Incremental model learning. So this enables the system to find the exact data that you want extracted from your document without having to do those time-consuming templates. So the system incrementally learns, if you will, what data to extract from your document, and we'll get to see what that looks like coming up. And finally, IEE provides a robust list of what are called pre-built scenario fields. So think invoice fields, PO fields, contract fields. So data points that you would typically collect in those typical scenarios. Or you can use what are called custom profiles, and you can create custom data fields that might be outside of the scenario field, and we'll get a look at that as well. So let's see. So what does this all look like? Well, our first look will be how to configure SnapMatch, and Juan, my colleague, is going to give us a look at the configuration experience from the admin perspective. And Juan, I understand you're going to be showing this to us in 5 parts. So you'll be showing us the file connection, the SnapMatch connection, the IEE recognition project, the document type population rule, and then finally the OCR data cache assignment in capture flow. All right, Juan, you want to show us what that looks like?
Sure. Okay, thank you, Jim. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so for the first part, I'm going to show how we configured SnapMatch and IEE. We're going to do the configuration in Designer. So the first part is the configuration of the file system connection, and that is under System, File System Connection. Okay, so for our demo, we're matching against a vendor text file. I'm going to show our vendor text file. Okay, this is what it looks like. We have vendor name, street, city, state, zip, phone, fax, and vendor ID. So we need a file system connection. So under protocol, we have to select file system. The file directory is where the vendor text file is saved, and the name of the vendor text file. So this file system connection is used by the SnapMatch connection. So this is our next configuration. It's right here under SnapMatch connection. So for the SnapMatch connection, we're going to configure, go to the manage data definition, and then select file system. And this is the file system connection that we created. And then under encoding, this is the encoding type of the text file. There's no text delimiter in the text file, and we're using tab as separator. So under columns to match, so after selecting the file system connection, you will see these columns populated. So these are the columns from our vendor text file. And then we will select the columns that we want to match. So we are matching by vendor name, vendor street, city, zip, state. Match per word is matching per word versus the entire string, and we're not going to use that. We're going to match it by the entire string. Under replace text, these are the default replacements. So this would be useful to get better matching. For example, you can use this for matching phone numbers, which have different formats. Okay, so we're just going to use the out-of-the-box default replacements. So after creating the SnapMatch data definition, when you click on create, it creates a SnapMatch data file, and this is saved under this path. So when you run SnapMatch population rule, this is the data file. It's a bin file that, and this is what it uses for the population. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the recognition project. Okay, so this is our recognition project using IEE. I'm going to open the project. So as Jim said, the configuration for IE is very minimal. There's only a few settings. We're going to use scenario field for extraction. And this was, we added this by just clicking on the add profile here. So you can add additional profiles and choose from a different scenario. So these are the other scenarios you can choose from. Under scenario fields, these are the default scenario, the pre-built scenario fields. You can see the entire list of fields here. And then we also added custom fields. So these are the custom fields that we added for this demo. You can add additional fields by clicking on the add field. And these are the types, the IE types that you can select from. Okay. Under preferred cultures, we're going to be extracting using English culture, but you can add additional ones. These are the other cultures that you can select from. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the document type. So after creating the profile, this document type was created automatically for us. I'm going to go in here. So this is the list of all the fields created from the document type, from the profile. You can see all the pre-built scenario fields and also the custom fields that we added. So the ones that are checked will be displayed on the indexing form that we will use for indexing. So we created the two group boxes to show the fields. For the SnapMatch population rule that is configured under this tab, population rules, we added a SnapMatch rule, population rule, by selecting SnapMatch for the method. For the configuration, that is configured through here under the definition. So in the definition, we selected the SnapMatch connection. So under field mappings, you can choose which fields to map to. So where the fields for the column, this is the column from the SnapMatch data file, and the copy to would be the indexing field. I'm going to click on this to show you what it looks like. So these are the columns from our data file. And these are the fields from our document type. Under confidence, you can set the confidence for the row or the columns. We have the confidence set really low, and that's because we're going to show the alternative matches. We enabled alternative matches, and then we have the maximum number of matches to be 3. Under compactness, you can define how close the column should be on the page to be a match. So you can choose from any of the columns from the data file. So these are the columns that to be matched. Okay, so now I am going to go over to our capture flow. Okay, so this is the capture flow we're going to use for this demo. We're going to be importing some invoices, and then we're going to, we have image converter to break up the invoices to single page files. There's a standard OCR to create the OCR data cache. And this is for the SnapMatch population rule. It requires the an OCR data cache for matching. And then we're going to index the data using a completion step. And then after completion, we have collector for IEE auto learning. Okay, so now I am going to show from the user perspective by going into completion. So in completion, we have this batch that I dropped in earlier. It was dropped in this morning. I'm going to open this batch. It has already gone through extraction, so the fields are already populated through SnapMatch. The capture flow we're using has completion at batch level. So in the tree view, you can see that there are 6 documents. Each document is a separate invoice. We're going to go through and index each document using the same document type. And over here is the indexing form that we created. So on this indexing form, we have invoice fields. We have invoice number, invoice date, and invoice amount. These are scenario fields. PO number is a custom field, so this will be initially be blank. So we're going to populate this field, and then later we're going to create another batch to show the IEE incremental learning. In the vendor group box, we're using SnapMatch to populate these fields. We have SnapMatch alternatives enabled, so we can show the alternative matches. We're going to launch alternative matches and then show the matches retrieved from SnapMatch population. Okay, so now I'm going to go through each document and index them. So for the first document, I'm going to set this back to Bunny Ridge Farm. You can see I'm going to hover over the text and see to show the text extracted. So SnapMatch uses the text from the extracted text for matching against the data file. So you can see the extracted text. Farm Inc. was not extracted fully because there's spacing in between. And on this side, you can see the populated text from the SnapMatch data file. You can also see the address populated and the vendor ID populated. Okay, so I'm going to use click to extract to populate the PO number. Invoice number was extracted. The invoice date, the long date, was extracted using IE. Here it's a long date, and then it converted to short date for us. The invoice amount was extracted at the bottom. Here's a matching record, Sunset Mechanics. You can see Sunset Mechanics on the logo. When I hover over the text, you can see it was not extracted correctly because of the noise and also the logo underneath. And then we can see the address on the bottom of the page here. Okay, so I'm going to continue through and populate the other fields and
Hey,
check.
Juan.
Yes.
So let's see. So in essence, this thing is the SnapMatch is triangulating on bits of data to find the best match to then populate from the tables. So in this case, it most likely recognized the street address and then matched that from the table and then populated the rest of the information. Is that a fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to go through and just finish this. So IE extracted the invoice number. Invoice date was found here, and invoice amount extracted on the bottom. Ran down corp. We see here there's a matching record. Ran down corp. It matches this text. And there's also the matching text on this image. So I'm going to continue populating these. Use click to extract to populate these fields. Make sure the fields are correct. Invoice date. And use the ship date because there's no invoice date on this invoice. And the amount is at the bottom. And this is correct. Okay. So vendor name, hover over the text. You can see this is a PTI invoice, but the vendor name was not extracted. However, next to the vendor name, there's an address. So SnapMatch use this, most likely use this for matching and populate with the correct address and vendor name. PO number, it's right here. For everything else, so for PTI, IE extracted on the second page of the invoice. Okay, so on air gas invoices, we have several addresses. So in this case, we can use the alternative matches and select a different one, the Marietta address. So once we selected, all these fields are populated. Then I'm going to populate the PO number. Make sure everything else is correct. Invoice date, invoice amount. Okay. And this is the same, this is a different air gas invoice, and we're going to select the Marietta address, which is the remit to address on the bottom. PO number, can do the same.
And again, that dropdown is the Enable Alternatives feature in SnapMatch.
Invoice number. On the top, invoice date, and invoice amount. So on this invoice, there are two different amounts. So we want the first amount, so I'm going to select it. Okay, so now I'm done with all invoices. I'm going to accept this one, accept this batch to finish. That's it for the first one. So now what we're going to do is show the incremental learning. I'm going to select a second batch. And then we're going to drop it into our import folder. Okay, so we're going to wait for it to go through extraction, and then we're going to show the incremental learning.
So what we're going to see next is the click to extract PO number that you were doing on those air gas voices. And then this batch, we're going to see a couple of air gas invoices and see if that PO number actually auto-populates from that incremental learning experience from the previous batch. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So
Okay.
earlier, when we processed these air gas invoices, they were initially blank because we're using a custom field. So since we had processed the air gas invoices and used click to extract, so in this second batch, you can see that the system picked up PO number automatically from here. And the same with the second one.
And again, it's not, we didn't, or you didn't draw a template or set up an XY coordinate. It just knew from that click to extract that custom field called PO number knew to look for that data on the document. From that experience, it knew where to find it.
Yes, and it was pretty quick. We didn't have to make any, we didn't have to configure any templates for this.
Fantastic.
Okay, so that's it for the demo portion.
All right. Thank you, Juan. That was very helpful. All right. Well, let's see. So, well, to summarize, so we saw the on the first part, we saw the configuration from the admin perspective of the file connection, the SnapMatch connection, the IEE recognition project, the document type population rule, and the OCR data cache assignment in capture flow. And that's where we saw the that flow diagram of the actual demo of the second part of the demo, which was from the user experience perspective. And we saw how SnapMatch can work in this particular narrative that we had today. So it was populating the vendor address and vendor ID. The vendor ID was not on any of those invoices. It was pulling that directly from the table, as was the rest of the data. And again, it's for lack of a better term, triangulating on one or two pieces of data to find the best match, and then based on that match, it would then populate the rest of your data fields. And then finally, we saw the IEE, the information extraction engine in intelligent capture, in particular the incremental model learning. And again, we saw that with the PO number custom field that Juan had configured. And we saw in the user experience demo, there were 2 batches that Juan had worked through. And in that first batch, the IEE engine was learning, if you will, where or what type of data to populate in that custom PO number field. All right, so that moves us to our next chapter in this webinar, the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Jim and Juan. That was great, good information. Don't forget, you guys, if there are any questions, you can type them into the Q&A section at the top of your webinar screen. But it does look like we have a couple of common questions here that we can answer. So the first one is for you. Can you have more than one SnapMatch population rule set up at the same time?
As of this current version, you cannot. So we heard from OpenText that this is something that they will add or fix in a later release.
Great, thank you. And Jim, can you tell us, does SnapMatch come with the standard intelligent capture, or do you need advanced recognition to make this work?
Sure, thank you. Well, because SnapMatch uses extraction, you'll need advanced recognition. So it comes out of the box, if you will, in advanced recognition.
Perfect. And then Juan, can SnapMatch be set up to refresh the SnapMatch data file automatically?
Yes. So earlier we created the data file manually, but you can set up SnapMatch to auto refresh by creating a task, a Windows task scheduler, and that will sync your data file with the SnapMatch data file.
Great, perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but if anybody does have any questions that come to mind later, you can feel free to email those in. If you send those in to the information email address, I think it's on the next slide, Jim. If you can send those into info@revolutiondatasystems.com, and somebody will get those questions answered for you. And as a reminder, we will be sending out the recording of today's session with all this information out later today. So you'll have all this information available, and we appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for your participation. Thanks so much, and have a great day, everybody.